My name is Daniel Carter, and I am 34 years old, and I have worked as a cashier at the same grocery store for almost 6 years now. Ever since my wife left and I became a single father to my 7-year-old daughter, Lily. And every single day, I clock in at 7 in the morning and stand behind, register for counting coupons and bagging groceries for people who barely look at me twice, because that is what it means to be invisible in a world that only notices you when something goes wrong. And on the Tuesday afternoon that changed everything, the store was packed with the usual after-lunch rush, carts bumping into each other, kids crying near the candy aisle, and I was halfway through, ringing up a stack of canned soup, when I heard a loud crash near aisle 6, the sound of glass jars shattering against tile. And when I looked up, I saw an elderly woman crumpled on the floor, her silver hair spilling across the linoleum, her hand clutching weakly at her chest. And something in me just moved before my brain even caught up, because I remembered my own grandmother collapsing in her kitchen when I was a boy and nobody knew what to do. So I left my register with a half-scanned order still blinking on the screen and a line of customers staring after me. And I dropped to my knees beside her and pressed my fingers to her wrist and felt her pulse fluttering weak and fast. And I shouted for someone to call 911 while I tilted her head back gently and kept talking to her, telling her she was safe, telling her to stay with me. And her eyes fluttered open just enough to focus on my face before the paramedics arrived 11 minutes later and took over. And I stood there with my hands shaking and soup cans still rolling near my shoes. And I thought that was the end of it, just another Tuesday, until I walked back to my register and found my manager waiting with his arms crossed and a look on his face like I had committed a crime. And he told me that leaving my post without authorization was a fireable offense no matter the reason, that the store had rules for a reason. And within 20 minutes, I was clocked out for the last time, walking to my car with a cardboard box of my belongings and no idea how I was going to explain to Lily why Daddy didn't have a job anymore. And that night, I sat at our small kitchen table staring at a stack of unpaid bills, wondering if helping a stranger had been a mistake. But 3 days later, everything changed when a black car pulled up outside our apartment building and a tall man in an expensive gray suit knocked on my door, introducing himself as Michael Whitfield and telling me that the woman I saved in that grocery store was his mother, Eleanor Whitfield, and that he was the CEO of one of the largest logistics companies in the country. And he said his mother had been asking for the young man who held her hand and refused to let go until help arrived. And when he found out that I had been fired for saving her life, something in his expression turned from gratitude to quiet fury. And he told me that character like mine was rarer than any resume he had ever reviewed. And 2 days after that visit, I received a phone call from the very same grocery store chain, except this time it wasn't my old manager. It was a regional director apologizing on behalf of the company and offering me my job back with a promotion to store supervisor. But before I could even respond, Michael called again and offered me something I never expected: a full-time position managing community outreach for his company's charitable foundation, with a salary that would let me finally move Lily into a real house with a backyard instead of a cramped 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. And when I asked him why he was doing all this for a stranger, he said his mother always taught him that the measure of a man isn't what he does when people are watching, but what he does when he thinks no one will ever know. And that day at the grocery store, I had no idea anyone with power was paying attention. I just saw a woman on the floor who needed help. And that was enough for me, and now every morning when I drop Lily off at her new school and drive to a job where I get to help other families going through hard times, I think about how one moment of instinct changed both of our lives forever, and I have learned that kindness is never wasted even when it costs you everything in the moment, because you never know whose mother you might be kneeling beside. And if this story touched your heart even a little, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that good still exists in this world. And subscribe to Kindness True Stories so you never miss another story like this one.